Hey everyone, thanks for attending our next session today, which is starting new users off right, tips for new user setup and onboarding. My name is Jim Tower and I'm the Director of Customer Solutions here at RoboHead. And what we're going to cover today are some tips for setting up new users. This is mainly from an admin perspective. So if you're somebody in charge of creating new users or replacing people as they leave the organization and you bring on new hires, this session is mainly for you. But if you are a non-admin user, you can take away quite a few things from today's presentation as well. If you are a newer user to RoboHead, we'll show you some ways that you can edit and customize your user interface to make things more streamlined for your day-to-day work. So the topics that we're going to cover today are user and account customization. We're going to talk about how to automate assignments and permissions for new hires. We're going to talk about training a little bit and how to address training needs for new users, both internal training and what RoboHead provides and what resources RoboHead provides, and then how to get some ongoing help and support after you're set up in RoboHead. So we're going to start off in the application today talking about how to set up new users and permissions and the different permission levels that are available for each user. So when you're adding a new user, you just want to click on new users up at the top. Of course, you do need to be an account admin to do this. Project managers can also create contact users if they need to create users who are just going to be requesting and or approving things in RoboHead. But it's pretty simple. You just fill out the person's name, enter an initial password for them. But what I want to focus on here today is the user role and the different user roles and permissions we have at a high level for each person you're adding here. So account admins are kind of like super users in the system. They can do anything and everything, and they will see every single project by default. So typically you'd only want to have a few or maybe a handful of admins, even for a larger account, because again, they will have access to everything and they can edit anything on any project. Project managers would typically be people that are creating or adding new projects into RoboHead. And we do have several extended permissions where you can give or deny access to project managers to do very specific things. But typically, again, you'd want to give project manager access only in the case where they need to be adding or creating their own projects. Project members, on the other hand, would be people working on projects, but not necessarily creating them in the system. So, for example, you might have people contributing to a project. Maybe it's a designer, a writer, an editor, somebody doing some part of a project, but not necessarily creating or managing projects. You'd want to make them a project member. And again, we have several extended permissions that you can give or deny each person on an individual basis. And then finally, we have contact users. Contacts are the most basic level of users in RoboHead. So typically, contacts would be doing one of two main things, either requesting projects or reviewing things, reviewing items when you set up reviews and send those out to people. Okay, so those are permissions at a high level. Now, once you've added your user into the system, I'm just going to cancel out of this for now. Once you've added your user into RoboHead, the next thing you're probably going to want to do is assign them to some projects. And the good news is that you don't have to click into every single project and assign them there. You can do it here from the user list. So let's just say, for example, maybe Frank is a new user and I need to assign him to some projects. I can simply click on the drop down next to his name and go down to Add to Project. Here I'm going to get a list of all of the projects, all of the active projects in the system. And here you can select multiple or just a single project at a time. So let's just say, for example, I wanted to add Frank to these three projects. I can just click on them, and then I can decide what permissions to give him to those three projects. So manage access, that would give him the ability to edit or change anything on the project. Contribute level users, they wouldn't be able to edit any project information or create tasks, but if they have the right extended permissions for their user profile, they could create reviews for the project. And then viewers are kind of like read-only users. They can't really add or change much information in a project except for notes. They can add notes and respond to notes. Viewers could also be reviewers in a project as well. So typically you'd only give manage access to a user if you want them to be managing maybe the project schedule, for example, or changing some of the high level information in the project. So then you would simply click add, and then Frank is automatically added to those three projects. Okay, the next thing you're probably going to want to do after you assign projects to someone is assign them tasks or work to do, especially if they are a project member user, such as a designer or writer or an editor. Now, you'll want to do this next step mainly if your new person is replacing somebody else that left the organization. And so typically when somebody leaves, you'll want to archive that user. But before you archive them, one thing that you can do is just go over here. Let's just say maybe Tom is the person that left. You can click on the little arrow here next to their name, and you can click on reassign all tasks or reassign all reviews. So let's just say I want to reassign all of Tom's existing tasks before he left to Frank, my new user. I can click reassign all tasks. I can go down here, select Frank, and hit reassign. So again, much easier to do it that way than to click into multiple projects and change permissions around and add people on the team tab individually to different projects. Now, the next thing you're probably going to want to do when you set your new users up is make sure that they have the correct notification preferences. And at a high level, at an admin level, if you haven't done this yet, this is something you'll probably want to take a look at, is you can set global notification preferences for all of the high-level user roles for your account that automatically get applied when you create a new user. So I'll show you where that is. If I click on the account tab here off to the left, go up to the actions menu, you can go down here to default notifications, and you're going to get a screen that looks like this. So I've got my different user roles. These are the high level roles we went through a few minutes ago when you set up a new person. And when I click on each one of these, I can set default notifications for each user role. And what this means is every time I create an account admin user, I can set what specific notifications that they get. Now, if you attended Eric's presentation earlier today, he actually had a handout with some really good default notifications for different user roles or different user types. I'm going to hand that out again in this presentation, but if you haven't yet, you might want to go back and review his. His was all about notifications. So we don't have a lot of time to dive into that in this session, but if you want to know more about recommended notifications, definitely check out his session. So this list is the exact same list you see when you modify or set up your own notifications, and you can set up the different events people want to get notified about, the scope, and then the notification method, whether that be an email. There are different types of emails you can get, or you can have the notifications sent to people's activity stream on their dashboard. So you do need to go into each one of these, and in some cases you will want to set up different notifications for the different user roles. And again, the guideline sheet that we're sending out gives good recommendations on which to choose if you're not sure. But the nice thing about that is once that's set up, you don't really have to set notifications for each user. If you know specifically that you want to set up a particular notification for maybe a certain use case for a user, you can certainly do that. Just click on the little arrow here next to their email again and go down to manage notification preferences. And again, you'll get the same set of screens that we just saw with all the same settings. Okay, so those are some of the basics that you'll need to know for setting up a new user. Now, the next thing that we would recommend doing when you're working with a new user or getting them going in Robohead is helping them customize the user interface. And one of the easiest ways that you can customize Robohead is by deciding which of these left-hand tabs that user will need to access. And you can change these, and you can also change the order of these by using the little gear icon down here on the bottom left. If I click on that, you'll see all of mine are checked currently. But to turn one of these tabs off, you simply would uncheck the box. Now, each user can do this for themselves. So you wouldn't really log in as them and do this for them. You would just give them some direction on which tabs that they should have on. And typically what we'd recommend is to have the minimum number of tabs open for the type of work that that person is going to do. And so, for example, let's just take a user such as a graphic designer. They may not need, let's just say, reports. So you can uncheck that. They are not going to see by default the account or the recycle bin. Those are the only things that show up for account admins. Maybe they are not going to be doing anything with portfolios. You can uncheck that box. Maybe they aren't going to be submitting or working with requests. You can uncheck that box. So the idea here again is to clean up the interface, make it easier for people to use without extra things on the screen that don't pertain to them. Now, I have seen this down even to a very basic level. Maybe you have somebody that's, a writer or a designer or somebody that is just only going to be doing some very focused work in Robohead. You can actually turn most of these things off. And in this case, I'm going to turn them all off except for projects and my work. And the idea there being that this person only needs to worry about accessing project information, and they're going to be assigned tasks through my work, and then just hit apply. And you can see that really cleaned up this left-hand side now. And we don't have, all the tabs of information that the person doesn't really need to worry about. Okay, so again, they can just click on those. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you is you can reorder these as well. So let's just say you have a user that needs to access projects, my work, maybe reviews, and notes. You can hit apply. Maybe 99% of the time they're going to be working with reviews. Well, you can actually move that tab up in the list, again, by using the gear icon. You can simply grab my reviews and drag it up to the very top and hit apply. And you can see now here, it's here in the upper left-hand corner. So again, really good way to customize the interface for people, either walk through it with them, or you could take screenshots or give them some direction on how to do that. Okay, the other areas of customization, as most of you know, are on the various lists in the application. So those would be the different columns across the top. You can, again, take screenshots or give people recommendations of which fields that would be best for them to view. They can click the sprocket icon here in the upper right-hand corner and pick and choose which fields make sense for them to see. Typically, you're going to want to at least have them see the project name in this case, because I'm on the projects tab, the project number, high-level dates, and the project status. Okay, so once you've got your new user set up and once you've got the interface set up in a way that makes sense for them, the next thing we'll want to think about is training. And different organizations tend to handle training a little bit differently. Some people are even scared off by the word training, so sometimes we'll call it onboarding or something else maybe in your organization. But the idea is to give people enough information that they need to use Robohead and do their job effectively without overwhelming them. So typically what works best is a combination of pure Robohead training on how to use the tool in conjunction with some internal training so that people know how Robohead works with their day-to-day tasks and their day-to-day work. And so ideally, it would be customized to your different user roles or your different job titles in the organization. And then Robohead also provides a lot of resources, both live and online, that your users can access. And we'll talk about those here in just a few minutes. But as far as training goes, Robohead does provide training. So if that's something you're interested in, we do provide live training as well as several recorded videos. For those of you who have already gone through the training process, I'm going to click back on the library tab here. In your library, there should be a folder called Robohead Training Recordings, and that is something else that you can direct your new users to, because that should have your customized training recordings from when you started using Robohead. Some of those might be a little bit out of date if you've used Robohead for many years, but some of you who are newer customers, those should still be pretty relevant. We also have more generalized training if you click on the question mark icon up here at the top and go to online help. And in here, we have quick start videos on the right-hand column, right on the main page. So the one that I would start with is this one called Basic Navigation. And then there are specific videos here that you can direct people to for doing specific things or performing specific actions in the system. So if you have people, for example, that are going to be just reviewing things, you can send them to reviewing and approving work right here. Or maybe they're just going to be requesting things, or maybe they're going to be tracking time, things like that. So you can send them to those specific videos there. We also have recorded webinars, and I know a lot of you are on our monthly webinars and attend those regularly, but they are all recorded. So there is a folder here on the left with all of the webinars, and they're just links, again, that you can click on and send people to. So if you want the best webinar to start in here, there is one called Robohead 101 down here. We are going to be doing a refreshed version of this because this one is a couple of years old now, but we are going to be doing a refreshed version of Robohead 101 next month in January. So you'll want to watch out for those email invites and be sure to sign up for that if you're interested in that. But that is a very high level basic overview of Robohead, and it's roughly an hour. And it covers kind of all the bases for most users that are going to use the system day to day. Okay, so the final thing I wanted to talk about today is how people can get some ongoing help after you've set them up and after they're trained. So we do have a lot of different resources. Again, back here, if I go into Robohead and if I click on the question mark icon, of course, we have online help that we were just in. That is completely searchable. So if the videos are not totally helpful, you can search by different topics in there. And we have pages with, kind of step-by-step how to do different things. You can always contact our support team. So there are a few different ways to do that. If you click contact support, that will open up a box where you can enter an information and start a ticket. Or you can do live chat. So if it's during normal US business hours, we do have chat available. I know a lot of you utilize that pretty heavily. So, if you need an immediate answer on something, that's a really good way to do it. We also have support via phone. So if I go back to the online help page here, we do have our phone number here off to the right, this 888-ROBO-123 number. If you are outside of the US, we do have a US regular number to call here as well. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful and gives you all some ideas on how to start your new users off on the right foot. So thanks again for attending and enjoy the rest of the conference.